From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Daniels Roofing, licensed, bonded, insured roofing contractor. 45 years of generational expertise, offering a variety of roofing systems in the North State. Composition shingles, metal, tile, fire-safe wood shingles, and spray foam roofing systems. An energy-saving cool roof, perfect for commercial flat roofs and mobile homes. With other companies, you may get a foreman or a salesman. But with Daniels Roofing, you get Daniel. Call today for your free estimate. Daniels Roofing, 3 generations working hard to protect your home and business.
Hello everyone, I'm Meteorologist Mike Krueger. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am coming to you from my studio here in Baja, California for the next couple of weeks, Baja, Mexico for the next couple of weeks. But I can still give you that most accurate, reliable forecast for Northern California thanks to my 25 plus years of not only living in the North State and North Coast, but also forecasting in the area as well. You can always look at the forecast model data from anywhere in the world. You can always take a look at that data. All right, let's get you to the headlines. Hot start to the week. Cooling trend this week with highs dropping to near and a little below normal, believe it or not. And looking down the line here, I'm not seeing any big heat waves heading our way anytime soon. We're going to get into all of that, plus the fires coming up here in just a bit. But for those of you that are just kind of checking in on the latest forecast quickly for today, let's get you to it. You're heading out the door this morning, a bit of fog along the coast as we typically see here. We're seeing mainly sunny skies elsewhere. However, it's going to be hazy. It's going to be smoky for many of us, especially east of the coast. Inland areas for the mountains and even the valley seeing some of that haze, although not as bad in the valley, by the way, as it was yesterday. Now, we're looking at the big ridge of high pressure that's over the eastern Pacific and over the western United States. That's responsible for the heat, which we'll get into here in just a bit. But taking a look at the HRRR forecast model, which we'll look at our in-house forecast model in our deeper dive, and what you'll see here are some clouds developing. Now, the HRRR forecast model is backed off on any chances for thunderstorms, but it looks like we could see a slight chance in northern Trinity County and into parts of Modoc County as well, which again, we'll get into a deeper dive here in just a bit. Hazy, smoky, pretty much anywhere you go with the exception of the coast. I think even the valley, despite the fact that the winds are shifting and blowing most of the smoke to the north of the valley, I still think it'll be a bit hazy out there, and it's going to be very hot with temperatures over 100 degrees in the valley. But look at this. The temperatures are trending downward. Now, it's still going to be hot, don't get me wrong. We're talking upper 90s, about 100 degrees. But that's around normal for this time of the year. So the heat wave we've been experiencing, that's coming to an end. And we'll be looking at just your typical summer heat starting tomorrow. Now for the coast, temperatures low to mid 60s, no big surprises. Inland temperatures and the mountain areas also seeing that downward trend in those temperatures. Now I put a slight chance for a shower or maybe even a thunderstorm for parts of Modoc County, in particular eastern Modoc County, east of Highway 299, but that's really going to be the extent of it. But that's bottom line, temperatures are dropping. We're breaking away from this heat wave as early as tomorrow. All right, that's a look at your Krueger's Quickcast. Before we get to your deeper dive, I want to remind you there is a 24-hour streaming channel available anywhere Weather NorCal is available. WeatherNorCal.com from the free Weather NorCal app. You can also watch it on YouTube anywhere it is available, including your smart TV, so be sure to check that out today. Let's get to your fire weather forecast, sponsored by Garmin's Tractor Service. Now, as you know, in the morning update, like the one you're watching now, I do a bit of a detailed look at what's going on with the fires, looking at the acreage, where the latest fire activity has been, and looking at the green fire. As of 7:03 yesterday evening, 5% containment at 11,642 acres. There you can see the evacuation warnings, and you can see the evacuation orders associated with that fire. All right, let's take you off to the west of that, and now we're looking at the Butler Fire and the Jacket Fire. Now, the Jacket Fire hasn't seen much change overall over the last several days, and really over the weekend, with 46 acres last reported, and there you can see 96% containment. Now, we are seeing for the Butler Fire, as of last night at 10 o'clock, 7,200 acres still at 0% containment. You can see the evacuation orders. Now, you see some of the red dots on the map there. That's some of the most recent activity over the last 6 to 12 hours or so. You can see on the south flank of the fire there. And it looks like the southern part and the north end of the fire are beginning to burn together, if you will, to kind of create one main fire. But you can see the north also seeing a little bit of activity there on the west side as well. All right, that's a look at that fire perimeter for the Butler fire. Now looking at the red fire, no recent activity, and even over the last 3 days. Now the red fire is sitting at 116 acres at 50% containment. Now looking at the Summit fire, where we haven't seen a whole lot of activity, is some red dots to the south end of the fire. So that's where we've seen the most recent activity there. As of 7:49 yesterday evening, yesterday, right? The 705 acres, 35% containment there. So we are seeing some better containment numbers really for most of the fires. So we're certainly seeing the firefighters doing a great job in getting things done for us. Let's take a look at that smoke forecast. Now again, really the big story yesterday was the parts of the valley seeing some pretty heavy smoke. That is moving on out. And the reason being is the winds really even yesterday shifted. They were blowing from the north, working their way southward. Over the last few days, what we've seen a shift. And this is something we actually predicted and saw coming, because as you can see now, with those winds blowing from the south, southwest, moving and blowing to the north, northeast, that's going to push most of that smoke to the north of those fires. So the Green Fire, the Butler Fire, for example, right? Now, you can still see a little bit of a north wind blowing some of the smoke from the Butler Fire down into northern Trinity County later this afternoon. But also notice a lot of the gray colors in there, even for the valley. It's still going to be hazy. You may even smell some faint smoke out there, but it's not going to be really dense smoke. Then you can see by later tonight, kind of settles down and we see the smoke mainly just around the vicinity of where the main fires are. But then as we go into the afternoon on Tuesday, we are beginning to see those winds shift again, moving from south, working their way northward, pushing most of that smoke up to the north. And a bit of a repeat going into Tuesday afternoon. As you can see, most of the fire most of the smoke that is north of the Green Fire, and we're seeing some of that smoke even working its way into extreme northern portions of Trinity County. By the way, as you know, those fire conditions can change rapidly. That's why I only do a detailed look at the fires in the morning and on Coffee with Krueger every weekday morning. But I don't do as much detailed look at the fires for your afternoon update or your evening update. So with that said, throughout the day, if you want to keep tabs on what's going on with the fires, very easy for you to do. Go to weathernorcal.com, click on the fire danger section. It's a one-stop shop. Check it out. It's got everything you need right there on that page, right there at weathernorcal.com. All right, now let's talk about the winds and how that will impact our fire danger, right? So you can see, pretty typical. Winds coming from the south for the valley at about 20 miles per hour, slightly higher gusts. Now up to the north, out towards Siskiyou County and even in the eastern mountains. So Siskiyou County, they're coming a little bit out of the north. And for the eastern mountains, Modoc County, they're coming from west, working their way eastward. Again, that's going to really generate some of those stronger winds and give us some slightly higher fire weather risk. Now we see another, looking at winds again, same situation going into your Tuesday afternoon. And Wednesday morning, we see the winds die down, but we don't expect the winds to really pick up a whole lot for Wednesday afternoon. So we look at the fire weather risk, and you see that little area between Redding and Red Bluff, a bit of red in there. That is categorized as very high. It goes from low to moderate, which is yellow. High is orange. Dark orange to red is very high, and then getting the purples, that's extremely high. So we're typically, even in the valley, mainly in the yellows and oranges. But we are seeing, because of the heat today, getting in that very high category. So today is one of those days we really need to use extra caution to make sure we don't start any fires. Because as you can see, as we go into Tuesday, now we're in the typical moderate to high range for the valley. And then you can see as we go into your Wednesday around midday, we're working our way to most likely moderate to high, but not necessarily in the very high range for Wednesday afternoon. Still have an extreme heat warning for western Siskiyou, Trinity County, northern Humboldt, and Delnor counties. Everywhere else is under heat advisory. Bottom line, it just means it's going to be hot out there. And I say everywhere else, that excludes the coast, obviously. But you see the big, broad ridge of high pressure. See the jet stream, the blue arrows? That's the jet stream. And within that dome, within that arc that you see, that's the heat. And as that expands northward, our temperatures get hotter and hotter. And that's what we've been experiencing here over the weekend, and we'll experience again here for today. Now, there are two main areas of heat, right? Down to our south and another one off over the eastern Pacific. Both of those are being pushed farther away from us. See that mild air up to our north? That is going to be moving in closer to us, and that's pushing the heat away, and as a result, our temperatures start to drop. Now we have another pocket of cooler, more mild air coming in from the north once again by the end of the week and into this upcoming weekend. What's that going to do? Well, again, see the heat way up to our west over the Gulf of Alaska and see the heat over the desert Southwest. They're having a hard time expanding and building into our region thanks to that mild air, that trough of low pressure that's moving on in. And that is going to help to moderate our temperatures. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not going to be cool. It's not going to be even mild. It's still going to be rather hot. Temperatures still well into the 90s for most of us in the valley. But at least we're going to be straying away from the most part, away from the triple digits. In fact, the normal high, we've reached that time of the year, folks, the normal high for Redding is 100 degrees. So we're going to be right around that or just below that here, starting tomorrow, really. And look at the long range. I mean, going into the middle of next week, we're dropping below normal. So no major heat waves are in the forecast anytime soon. But I wanted to show you the water vapor imagery because it's hard to see the moisture content out there. So where you see those rust colors, that's dry air. We've got very dry air that's in place, and that's what's so hot out there too. Now, Futurecast is showing the potential for some afternoon convection out towards northern Trinity County and into parts of eastern Modoc County as well. So could we see a straight shower in those areas, maybe an off chance for a thunderstorm? It's not out of the question, but I wouldn't count on it. And then we go into Monday, and you can see the fog along the coast in the morning. By the afternoon, a lot of that fog burns off, but still pretty foggy even Tuesday afternoon for central and northern Humboldt County, but Del Norte, southern Humboldt County, sunny skies. I don't see any showers or thunderstorms popping up on Tuesday in the mountains. And then going at least through midday Wednesday, you can still see some of that fog just kind of hovering on the coast right there. All right, let's take a look at your lake levels out there. We've actually seen quite a drop for Shasta Lake in the last 24 hours at a little over a foot. Almost 2 feet drop, 2 foot drop that is for Lake Oroville, but only about 1/4 of a foot for Trinity Lake. Now looking at your wave heights, you can still see they're still fairly high, not only today, but most likely even tomorrow. There still is a small craft advisory in effect through this afternoon with those winds coming out of the northwest at about 15 to 20 knots. Your waves in the northwest at 8 feet at about 10 seconds. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at your temperatures. Yes, it's another hot day out there today. Temperatures most likely over 100 degrees in most cases. Although Mad River, Ruth, you're mainly in the 90s. Look for a high of 71 for Blue Lake, 101 for Alder Point, and 98 degrees in Garberville. We take you up north with 106 in Orleans, 107 in Willow Creek. There are the inland areas also seeing temperatures drop. So one more day of this heat wave before temperatures start to drop. Isn't that nice? I always love saying that, right? Temperatures are dropping. That's a great phrase to say this time of the year. 99 degrees out in Gazelle for today. Wairika, 101. And even Scott Valley getting pretty hot today with temperatures there in the upper 90s. 98 degrees for Alturas, 95 in Cedarville, and 97 degrees in Eagleville. Now again, I've got that slight chance, mainly east of Highway 299 for a stray shower or thunderstorm, but otherwise mainly dry across the board here for today. 100 out in Westwood, 104 in Susanville, and Paradise a high today of about 95 degrees. 102 in Corning, 100 degrees in Willows, as well as Gridley, and it looks like Chico in Orville about 102 degrees. Let's take a look at that 7-day forecast for Chico. There are the dropping temperatures. In fact, low 90s by Thursday, but just kind of hovering back up to about the mid to upper 90s for Friday and through the weekend. Let's take you up to the north. There you can see temperatures about 106 or so. I think it might be overdoing it there for Bella Vista and the city of Shasta Lake, but you get the idea. It's going to be another hot day out there for today. Looking at your 7-day forecast for Redding, temperatures just kind of hovering around the upper 90s to about 100 degrees starting tomorrow. We're going to be right around or just below normal for the rest of this week after today, obviously, and even going into the weekend. That is your morning update. I'll be back again this afternoon and again this at evening at 6 o'clock. That is, have yourselves a great morning.
Construction season is well underway in the North State, and we'd like to remind drivers to slow down around work zones. Keep Caltrans workers safe when they're on the job, and remember to be work zone alert when you see the color orange. Remember to pay attention to signs, merge early, avoid distractions, and don't speed. This message is brought to you by Caltrans District 2.